news. King Charles, closer to home, has praised the ethics of Judaism and the human instinct of Islam in his Christian Easter message.
Well, His Majesty is known to have a passion for promoting strong interfaith relations in this country, but the move will undoubtedly come as a surprise, given that he is Supreme Governor of the Church of England.
Yes, it also comes on the day the King is attending the Maundy Thursday service at Durham Cathedral today, after which he will distribute so-called Maundy money. Well...
Let's get the thoughts now of the former chaplain to Queen Elizabeth II, Dr. Gavin Ashenden. Gavin, this is very interesting. I don't think I've heard of a king or a queen's Easter message before that mentions other faiths as well as Christianity.
Yes, it would be nice if we could say how wonderful and welcome it with generosity. But the trouble is, it causes more trouble than it helps. The fact is that it's offensive partly to Jews and also to Christians, because this is a Christian festival, and it presupposes there are no differences that are essential between Christianity and Islam. But there's some very real problems. Last year, I think, over 4,000 Christians were killed worldwide by Muslims. And this isn't an isolated thing. This is an ongoing act of antagonism between a faith that follows a warlord and a faith that follows Jesus, and to synthesize them together as though they are equivalent, really. It's a theological mistake, but it's also a mistake of hospitality. The king owes his Christian subjects more than to enter into this fiction, and it's profoundly difficult for anyone who's close to suffering communities.
He talks so much about different faiths and religions. It almost seems as though he doesn't have his own religion. It's almost as though he subscribes to all of these religions. He goes that far. We do know that there was a conversation, wasn't there, about whether he was the defender of the faith or faiths plural, and hints that he was moving towards the faiths plural. I mean, it does seem as though he sort of just wants to be a part of every religion.
Well, I'm afraid that's partly true. We have to do a little bit of theology. Jesus said, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me." And the reason for that is no other religion features God as a father. It's a uniquely Christian thing. Now, all religions have things in common and share ethics. So you can either say, this is what's special about Christianity, or this is what's special about everything. But at Easter, he should be saying, this is what's special about Christianity. Jesus is so compelling, so important. He's not the same as Muhammad. And to send out a Christian message suggesting that there's no real difference between them it's disrespectful, I'm afraid.
Have you been getting a load of spam in your email recently? What about random calls? It's really annoying, isn't it? Data brokers are out there collecting your personal information. Anything from your email, your full name, your address, and even your political affiliation. Cyber criminals can even use AI to mimic the voices of friends and family to trick people into sending them money. And it gets even worse. People out there are getting huge loans taken out in their names without even knowing about it. But don't worry, because the sponsor of this video, Incogni, can help. They reach out to the data brokers on your behalf and request that your information is removed from their databases. Incogni continues to make sure that your data is removed automatically from the internet via repeated removal requests. So, how can you get started? Well, step one, hit the link in the description, create an Incogni account and tell us whose data you'd like removed. Step two, grant Incogni the right to work on your behalf. Step three, sit back, relax and watch Incogni work. They will update consistently so you know when your data has been removed. Incogni is risk-free for 30 days, so you can try it for yourself and you'll get a free refund if the service isn't for you. So take back your personal data today with Incogni. Use the code GBNews using the link in the description below and you'll get 60% off an annual payment plan.
And yet, Islam does treat Jesus as a significant figure. Not as significant as they treat Muhammad, of course, but still as a great teacher, the teachings of whom they revere, and is part of their Abrahamic canon. Is that perhaps what the king was getting at?
Well, partly, but there's a problem with that. The problem is that the Jesus in the Quran and the Abraham in the Quran are not the real Jesus and they're not real Abraham. Muhammad made them up. They're part of a figment of his religious imagination. And the reason they're not the same is they say things out of character. So it's true that Muslims respect a figure called Jesus. It's a fictional figure that Muhammad invented.
You could argue that the biblical Jesus is also a fictional figure. We know that the real Jesus was born in 3 or 4 AD rather than 0. And we do know certain things about the life of the historical Jesus that don't quite match up to the tales in the Bible.
You could argue it, Tom, but you'd be wrong. You'd lose the argument because actually, we have 4 different traditions that talk about Jesus. They marry in almost every single respect. The fact they don't marry in every respect suggests it's not been a text.
Well, we know that it's likely the real Jesus probably wasn't born in Nazareth.
No, it's not likely at all. What you're
Sorry,
what
not
you're
born in
repeating is
Bethlehem. Was born in Nazareth, not Bethlehem.
it isn't at all likely at all. I mean, PhD scholars make up they make their reputations like I have a new idea, which they then sell. And people pick it up and say, oh, this is the latest clever
like
clever
Jesus
theory.
is non-binary and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally so. But the fact is there is no figure who's been more examined in history ever than the real Jesus. And nobody suggests that what you have in the Gospels is misleading except Islam, who say the thing has been faked at the end. Now,
but there's no record of a census that demanded people travel to their city of birth.
No, there is, really.
There really isn't.
There is. You've read the wrong book. Look, we can argue about this, but honestly, there is. but
He's so argumentative today.
The people have tried to find historical evidence of a census that demands people travel, and they haven't.
We know you're not a believer, Tom.
Well, no,
you're not a believer.
There are lots. It's perfectly compatible to say that there are allegorical stories in the Bible, and and I think most Christians wouldn't subscribe to every single word in the Bible as an issue of historical fact.
Being more offensive than King Charles, Tom.
No, I don't think there's a single Christian alive who would say every single word in the Bible is historical fact.
Let's give you the last word, Dr. Gavin Ashenden.
But I almost would, Tom. So, and I'm still alive. But the reason is not
almost,
because but of course, because I don't believe in the Bible. I believe in Jesus. The Bible takes me to him, and there's nothing wrong with what it says. It's all compatible, and it's so profoundly compelling. The figure of Jesus is so large, and he's survived every single exploration like the one you've just examined for 2,000 years. What the Quran says is that his resurrection was faked. But that doesn't make any sense of the experience of the Christian community or the success of Christianity. It's a special argument that doesn't work. But the difference between us, and the problem that King Charles is doing, is he's pretending there aren't any differences. The differences are sufficient for Muslims around the world to kill Christians. Now, I'm not saying all Muslims do that. We have some wonderful Muslims neighbor. Christians do bad things too. What I'm saying is you can't, as head of the church, put a message out that distorts the reality of what's going on. Better tell the truth.
So,
and deal
Gavin,
with it
this could come from a place of ignorance rather than a desire to be woke or edgy, even, as our royal historian suggested earlier in the show. It could just be plain ignorance.
You're very kind, and that would be the nicest explanation. But the fact is, all of us have preferred ways of looking at the world that fit in our world map or our worldview. King Charles, for a very, very long time, has wanted a homogenous map where everyone gets on. And it includes this idea that the Abrahamic faiths are all more or less cousins of each other and teach more or less the same thing. They do have certain things in common. They have such important things in different that people kill others for it.
Yes.
What I'm suggesting is that his attempt to wallpaper those over is an interesting attempt to have, but you shouldn't do it when you're giving a Christian message to Christians, many of whom have been persecuted by Muslims and still are. It's offensive.
I could not agree more. Dr. Gavin Ashenden, former chaplain to Queen Elizabeth II, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
And I hope you have a wonderful Easter weekend.
Yeah. No, I think that is a really profound point, that given that Islam, yes, of course, teaches that Jesus was a great teacher, but that he faked his own resurrection at the moment of Easter, of all places, to then mention Islam does seem curious. Now, King Charles has been in Durham, where he attended the Maundy Thursdays celebration in the city's cathedral.
At the end of his service, His Majesty handed out Maundy money to 76 men and 76 women, one for each year of his life, to thank them for their outstanding Christian service.
Well, let's go to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, up there in Durham for us. Cameron, what's the King been up to?
Yeah, well, this morning, Tom, he released his Easter message where he spoke of the importance of love across all religions, including Islam and Judaism and all the others as well. But of course, the central message was one of the Christian faith. And the King was here at Durham Cathedral for the Royal Maundy service. It's an ancient tradition dating back hundreds of years. And as you said, he distributed his Maundy money in a red purse. There was a commemorative £5 coin which featured the Queen Mother, and there was also a 50p coin commemorating stories of the Second World War. But I think the highlight in this beautiful sunny weather was the walkabout the King and Queen did outside. There were crowds of around 1,000 people outside the cathedral, and the King and Queen tried to meet as many of them as possible, some of which have been queuing since around 6 o'clock this morning, perhaps just showing the dedication people in the North East have here to the royal family. There was also a small Republican protest, as there always is here in the United Kingdom, with the big yellow banners, but they were vastly outnumbered by the protesters, so small but noisy. One lady I spoke to who received the Maundy money actually cried when the King gave it to her. She was just so overwhelmed with emotion with what he was saying. He was thanking her for her service. On Sunday, the King and the Queen will be at Windsor Castle for the St George's Chapel Easter Sunday service as head of the Church of England.
Very sunny and beautiful Durham. Thanks indeed for joining us.